All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. Now, the NBA playoffs are beginning to start, and as we speak, the Brooklyn Nets and Philadelphia Sixers are kicking things off. And I talked about the East in the first round last night, and today I'm going to talk about the Western Conference. And this year's Western Conference first round is very intriguing because, for the most part, if the lower seed were to win in any of these series, not too many people would be surprised. If you look at the standings in the West throughout this regular season, there wasn't a lot that separated 4 through about 11 or 12 for the most part. And I think we're going to see that on display throughout these playoffs. But first, let's get started with the first round here. And you're going to have the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are the 8 seed. They got that last night with their win at home against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they're going to be taking on the top seed in the West and the Denver Nuggets. And for me, there's a lot of question marks heading into this series. Which Minnesota team are we going to see? And then the same could be said for the Denver Nuggets. You look at the Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns was out for the majority of the season with that calf injury. He's come back strong for this team. The Timberwolves at the beginning of this year had high hopes for D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and of course Rudy Gobert, who they acquired last summer from the Utah Jazz. Well, since then, D'Angelo Russell got traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. You still got Anthony Edwards. You still got Carl Anthony Towns. You have Rudy Gobert. And you have a veteran back there in the backcourt in Mike Conley. And I want to talk about Anthony Edwards because this young man is the real deal. This young man has the talent to take over, and his talent was built to be shown on the playoff stage. It's going to be interesting to see what type of impact that Edwards is going to have for the Timberwolves in this series. Karl Anthony Towns, and I think we saw a snippet, if you will, last night against the Thunder. When Karl Anthony Towns is on and when Karl Anthony Towns is focused at the offensive end of the floor, there's not too many people at his position in the NBA that can stop him. Sometimes Cat gets focused too much on the perimeter shot, but close to the basket, there's not a lot of people who can stop him. And I think he needs to take advantage of that in this series. Now, I talked about Rudy Gobert, and of course, he had a big game last night against the Thunder. And of course, one of the reasons for that is OKC really doesn't have the size. But nonetheless, this is why, if you're Minnesota, and I still think they overpaid for it, but this is why you bring in a guy like Rudy Gobert to be that rim protector, to be that defensive presence, and you're going to need him in this series against the Denver Nuggets. Torian Prince, what type of impact will he have in this series for the Timberwolves? We got to wait and see, but I think one big factor, not having Jaden McDaniels after he suffered that broken hand after hitting a wall. That's going to be huge for Minnesota in this series. Now, like I said, will the Nuggets be up for the challenge? Because we saw them lose some questionable games throughout the regular season. We saw them falter coming down the stretch, and now they've had an opportunity to rest. But will it be rest or will it be rust when they take the court tomorrow night for game number one? We know what Nikola Jokic brings to the table. You're talking about the two-time reigning MVP. Very possibly, we could be talking about a three-time MVP before it's all said and done. The man averaged a triple-double this season. And, he's put this team on his back in recent years. You think back to last year and helping the Nuggets get to the playoffs without having Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray. But guess what? Those guys are back. And it's going to be very intriguing to see what type of Jamal Murray we get through this series and what type of Michael Porter Jr. we get through this series. And also a guy like Aaron Gordon, he likes to get to the basket. So will this Nuggets offense be able to get Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert in trouble, especially for Rudy Gobert's standpoint? Because if you get him in foul trouble, then you know what? You're off to the races because Minnesota then does not have their rim protector. KCP, what impact is he going to have in this series for Denver? A guy like Reggie Jackson can be instant offense off the bench, and we've seen that. So that's going to be important. And then DeAndre Jordan. He's not the DeAndre Jordan that we know from his time with the Los Angeles Clippers. I do see him getting some minutes in this game. And will he be the solid rim protector for the Nuggets that they need? We got to wait and see. You got Chris Finch, as far as the head coaches for Minnesota, going up against Michael Malone in this series. And it's going to be interesting to see which team is able to seize the moment here. Now, who has the edge? I'm going to give the edge to Denver, and I'm going to say Denver wins this series in six. It's not going to be easy as they're going to have to work for it, but the Nuggets will advance. Now, you're going to have the two seed, the Memphis Grizzlies, taking on the seven seed Los Angeles Lakers. And of course, the Lakers at one point this season, they looked like they were a lost cause until a bevy of trades prior to the trade deadline got things turned around. The Lakers were one of the hotter teams coming down the stretch. They got to the play-in tournament. It looked like they were going to struggle being down double digits in the third quarter at home to Minnesota before they were able to turn it on. And for me, this is one of the most, if not the most intriguing series of the first round. And for the Lakers, they know that they have the ability to turn it on when they want to, but will they against this Memphis team? We know about LeBron and AD and what they bring to the table, and they have to be at the forefront for the Lakers to advance. But D'Angelo Russell, he's going to be very important in this series going up against Ja Morant. Guys like Austin Reeves, Dennis Schroeder, Rui Hachimura, and Mo Bamba, I think, are going to be important in this series for the Lakers as it progresses. And then for Memphis, are they ready to accept the challenge of the NBA's second season? We saw the Grizz get to the second round last year. They came into this year expected to be a title contender. They've had their ups and downs, but will they be ready to seize the moment here in the postseason? We know about Ja Morant and what he can do. You look at the talent around him with the guys like Desmond Bain and Jaren Jackson. Both of them are going to be important in this series for Memphis, but I don't think there's a good player for the Grizzlies outside of Ja Morant that is not going to be more important than Dylan Brooks. We know what Dylan Brooks can do. We know the energy that he brings to a team, and sometimes it can help a team, but also it can hinder the Memphis Grizzlies. And if you're the Grizzlies, you got to hope that Dylan Brooks doesn't do something that is going to cost you in this series. There is a possibility for that. Now, Memphis not having Steven Adams, and they haven't had him for most of the year, but I think this is when they're going to miss him. Steven Adams is their leader. And then on top of that, he is a defensive presence as well as being a rim protector. Big time miss for the Grizzlies in this series. Darvin Ham, this is his first time around in the playoffs as a head coach going up against Taylor Jenkins. And I think this series is going to come down to a lot of adjustments and who is able to keep the momentum going. I think it's going to be back and forth, nip and tuck, but when it's all said and done, I'm going to take the Lakers in 7 games over Memphis. Now you're going to have the 3 seed Sacramento Kings taking on the defending NBA champions in the 6 seeded Golden State Warriors. Now, will it be the experience of the Warriors or the youth of the Kings? And we're talking about a Kings team that has not made the postseason since 2006. That's a very long time in NBA standards. So I look at it like this. Sacramento is going to be buzzing for games number 1 and 2. And I think it's going to be very important for the Kings to feed off of their home crowd. But it's also going to be important for Golden State because I know it's kind of been there, done that for them in the postseason. But we're talking about a team this year that only won 11 games away from home. So will Sacramento be able to take advantage of that? We got to wait and see. Now, Mike Brown is the head coach of the Kings, a former assistant of the Warriors. So there's not going to be any surprise from what he sees from Golden State on the court in this series. But De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, two of the younger, brighter players in the NBA. And now this is their opportunity together on the postseason stage. Harrison Barnes, he's the vet, won a championship with the Warriors. But a guy like Malik Monk off of the bench, and he's been instant offense throughout this season, throughout his career coming off the bench for teams. And nonetheless, I think he gets an opportunity here. Also, keep an eye out for guys like Keegan Murray and Kevin Herter for Sacramento in this series. Now, of course, for the Warriors, do they have another title run in them? They are the defending NBA champs. This is a veteran-laden team with guys like Steph and Clay. Sometimes, and I've said it throughout this season, Steph and Clay, they can't rely on the three-point shot now like they did once upon a time in their career. As far as to me, I think they still take too many. But a guy like Andrew Wiggins returning after the long absence from the team, he's going to be vital at both ends of the court. But, his legs, his wind, as far as the series goes along, how is that going to be for Golden State? We got to wait and see. But there's a lot of vets that know how to get it done. You got a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, of course, Draymond Green, Kevon Looney on the boards is going to be big in this series as well. And also keep an eye out for a guy like Dante DiVincenzo. And for head coach Steve Kerr, it's kind of been there, done that. And he trusts his Warriors to step up in these moments because they've done it so much in the past. And again, one of the big things for me is going to come down to Golden State's ability to win on the road. If this series goes back to San Francisco, tied at a game apiece, advantage Warriors, and I think they'll take off from there. But at the end of the day, I am going to give Golden State the edge due to the experience. I'm going to take the Warriors to advance in 6 games. And finally, this is going to be a doozy right here. You got the fifth seeded Los Angeles Clippers taking on the fourth seeded Phoenix Suns. And for me, both of these teams are capable of winning it all, but somebody's going home here after round number one. And the big thing, one of the big things for me in this series, which team will be able to stay healthy? We know that the Clippers are already entering this series wounded. Paul George is not going to be available at the beginning of the series, at least. And honestly, it would really be surprising to me if we saw Paul George at all in this series. That changes things because you think about his ability as a perimeter defender along with Kawhi Leonard. That's important in a series like this when you're talking about guys who could fill it up from outside like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker can for Phoenix. Chris Paul at the point going up against Russell Westbrook. This is always an intriguing matchup. There's no love lost between the two of these guys, and let's see how it plays out in this series. Now, the Suns don't have the depth that they did before acquiring Kevin Durant, but you still got Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet. They should play an impact in this series. And then the Clipper role players, such as Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, Mason Plumlee, and Avika Zubac. What type of impact are they going to play in this series for the Clippers? Ty Lue versus Monty Williams, two solid head coaches. Of course, Ty Lue has a championship on his resume, and Monty Williams has the potential to get it done. When it's all said and done, I give the edge to the Suns in this series. I think not having Paul George, and even if Paul George does come back in this series, he's not going to be fully healthy. It changes things immensely for the Clippers, and because of that, I think Phoenix takes advantage and they're able to advance past the Clippers in 6 games. So, folks, that is my outlook for the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.